G'day, I'm Darren Hamblin. Today we're at our feedlot at Strathdale, which is one of our 7 properties we own in southern and central Queensland. We have 6 properties, 2 for breeding, 2 at the Serena area and 4 in the Middleman area. We also do some cropping and backgrounding in the Middleman area, and then those steers and some heifers come down to fatten here at the feedlot on the Darling Downs at a little town called Leeburn, and our property is called Strathdale Downs. Strathdale Downs was bought by my grandfather in 1943, and through his generation and then my father's generation it was predominantly for sheep. So we have a shearing shed here that we don't use anymore. Dad started into cattle in Boss Indicus sort of approach back in my earlier life. Since then it's been transitioned totally away from sheep and any other breed. It's all Wagyu now. So this feedlot here, Strathdale Downs feedlot, is the final part of our preparation of our cattle. We breed them in the north, we background them on pastures and crops in our Middlemount country. We bring them down here and we further background them and teach them how to eat out of bunks still out in the pasture. Then we move them into the shedded situation here for the final part of their completion of their feeding, which prepares them for the high marbled output product for the abattoir. As you can see behind me, the design of our shed here is a European dairy style bunk. That gave us the ability to not only use traditional tractor pull style machines, but also when the robots become available to me in Australia, we can utilise those with these bunks. That's essentially what they're designed for. The traditional way of feeding cattle is in a 24-hour period. We measure what they eat and we decide how much we give them for the next 24-hour period. Now that takes a person with a lot of skills, time to get that right, and there are variables that are hard to control. So in this situation we've controlled the weather, we've controlled the rainfall on the feed. The next thing we wanted to control is getting our bunk reads correct and keeping the feed over to the animal. The Eco Shuttle will do approximately 20 routes a day, and there are 3 of them feeding these 2 sheds, which means we have 60 opportunities a day to push, to feed, to read, and all that data goes back to a central database to make decisions, which essentially reduces our error rate on doing our bunk reads to 1/60th of our traditional system. I believe we're going to get a much more consistent feeding product. I believe we're going to deliver fresh feed to the animals more often, and from that, based on my information from my travels around Europe looking at the robots in the dairy systems who are gaining 5 litres production from using the robots, I believe that will transform over to our beef production in some way. I can't tell you what that gain will be, but I'm confident to say that we will get gains. I realise that they have enough functionality to manage all of the differences we may have in Australia as compared to where they were designed in Austria, and much more. In fact, I think our opportunities here are endless. I think it's going to be more of a learning on our part as to what we can use those different functions for. We are sitting in a situation where we've been doing traditional type feeding for so long. I think we're going to have to take the blinkers off and understand there are many new opportunities on how we feed cattle to get better production. One of the huge advantages of using the robot feeders is they fill themselves and they do all the roles that we have to do, but they can do it at any hour of the night. We still need employees here to keep an eye on them, to read the data, to check the cattle, to fill the commodity boxes for the robots to feed. So we still need humans, but we can manage our day around that. In the past, we decided that the daily work habits of a human should determine how we feed the cattle. I believe the cattle need to tell us how they should be fed, and with the robots we can work in with that. Everyone can work in together happily. the consideration needs to be given to when does that animal want to be fed rather than when do we want to feed them. An animal in its natural state in the pasture has fresh feed, hopefully whenever it desires. It goes, eats grass whenever it wants. Do we know if they eat at midnight? Do we know if they eat during the day? Not necessarily, but I think it's up to them to make that decision. So with the robot, we can feed fresh feed 24 hours a day if we wish. The reason why working with Pat has been so easy, he's already invested in this industry. He's already invested in where he thinks the industry is going to go. His understanding of the robots was fantastic. I was on a bit of a mission on my own until I met Pat, and our discussions now are nearly always about how we're going to make these robots work for us. We also find it easy to manage the operation, manage the installation, because the people I'm using for electrical here are also from Dalby, and they talk direct to Pat to solve a lot of the problems. We have meetings together. It's been a fantastic communication, and I really can't see anything going wrong with the installation. I believe when they arrive here with the gear, within 2 weeks we'll have the robots feeding. It made total sense for me, being that he's only an hour and a half from me, that he be the distributor, and I can see that the industry is going to be using these machines more and more, so it's fantastic to have a local distributor to support us. So because I'm not a very experienced feedlotter, I took a lot of my advice from those who are, and it's not hard to gather that information. It's freely given up around the industry. One of the issues is clean water for the welfare of the animal. If we have a trough that an animal can defecate in, can stand in, can dribble in, can stand over, that's an issue. If we have dirty water from that, that's an issue. They don't want to drink it. If they don't drink, they won't eat. So we have a lot of issue around water, and everyone manages in different ways. The most common way to manage that is clean them often, which is a good approach. The issue with that is, depending on the size of your trough, it means you're wasting water. It means that the water you tip out has to go somewhere. It can't go in the pen, so it has to go out some sort of a sewer. So it's an expensive install and also a high maintenance situation. So I designed troughs to take away those problems. I designed troughs that were higher so they couldn't stand in them. They are slightly outside the pen so they can't defecate in them. They are smaller, so when we empty them, we waste less water. They get more flow, so they always get fresh water. They're made of stainless steel, so the water's cool. They're also easier to clean. They tip over, so we don't have to use the gravity for the water to go at the bottom of the trough. We simply tip the trough over. When we tip it over, it also self-cleans, and we don't get algae growth on the stainless steel. So I think you can tell from the lack of noise behind me during this whole interview, the only noise you hear is the creak of that rail when they're pushing over to get a feed, or the noise of their manure hitting the ground. You never hear any noises coming out of them. When we talk about why I designed these sheds the way I did, why we have them undercover, it's all based around the welfare of the animal. The best welfare animal will give me the most return. These animals, if you can see them behind me, they eat when they want, they lay down when they want, they drink when they want. They're not determined by the heat of the day or any other factors. Inside, it's like going into a restaurant and being at a smorgasbord. You get up when you want, you sit down when you want, and you fart when you want, for that matter. The future for Wagyu in general is, it's solid now. It's a part of mainstream beef production. Those who want to stay in it need to strive to be at the pinnacle of it. A little bit more commoditised now than it was 10 years ago. A lot of people have got into it in a more traditional approach. If you want to be at the top, you've got to employ the technology that's available and strive to have the best quality meat. The younger generation are in a prime position to utilise that technology and find themselves in that situation. The reason why I like working with the younger generation is us older guys tend to be a little bit adverse to learning new things. The technology that's available to us, it is very underutilised in the ag industry. If I can get the younger generation to understand what the technology can do for them, they're more likely to bring it into their operation than changing the ways of the older people. My advice to the younger generation who want to find their place in the ag industry as well as are interested in ag tech is you have to find someone who wants to get an outcome. Bringing ag tech into an industry for the sake of bringing it in is of no use. You need the person who is going to fund it. If you can't fund it yourself, you need them to understand what are their profit drivers and how they're going to change their operation to achieve those profit drivers. Now, if you can measure that, project that, and they can understand that that's going to make them money, they're going to want you to help. And they're not going to be able to do it without you. When we look at the next innovation in ag tech or the next best way that we use ag tech in the industry is more of a case of how we utilise what we've already collected. There are a lot of useful tools out there that people have made. I think if you think of it from a situation, you want to collect more data, how do I collect it? You go and find the technology, you're going to be better off than if you find technology and think, how am I going to make it apply to my system? The collecting of the data and using it together from one source or in one analysis is going to be gold. Some of the things that I could suggest we're going to do here in the not too distant future, or we've already started, is we have the ability now to do the whole feedlot net feed intake information on different genetics. I think that's going to be a transforming thing in the industry, in feedlotting in general, and in any breed of cattle. Not only am I excited that my kids have shown interest by way of their university studies has all been around ag, to see that they're going to pursue it and continue what I've done, I'm more excited about where they can take it. I think the younger generation can do a lot more things than we've done. I believe they'll embrace the technology better. I believe that there's more feedback to come into our system, down to the level of feedback from consumers, cut by cut, feeding that into a genomic model which will give us a more valuable predictor on animals. I think they can go there. Now, if I can tell you what I think they'll do, I'm limiting it to what I think. What I'm saying is what they think will just blow all that out of the water.